Trying to get every, there it is. Okay. All right, I think I've got everybody on here. Like I say, email me after, during this class with, and I will send you the handout. Okay? All right. First off, I spent 10 years working with a new home builder before I got my license to become a realtor. Now, that was also ended in 2012. So there's some things that could have changed between now and then. I've talked to several new home builders preparing for this class. There are a few wrinkles that I have found that are different, but for the most part, it's still the same thing. So let's start off with what the fundamental difference between you and a new home sales rep. Number one, they're not a licensed realtor, or if they're a licensed realtor, they have an inactive license because the builder will require them to make their license inactive in order to work for them because they don't want the conflict of interest, which you can understand. Oh, if I'm selling in this neighborhood, you don't like my neighborhood, I need to go over here. They don't want that. They only want you selling their product. So that's an understandable wrinkle. But there are several things that also means. First off, they don't have the same code of ethics that you do because they're not a realtor. You, as a realtor, can't reach, if you're working for the seller, the builder, you could not reach out to the buyer that was brought to you by another agent, right? They don't have that thing to hold back. They will go after your client, not against your will, but because if you brought them in and registered them, that's, as far as they're concerned, that's their prospect. Which if you brought them into me, I would too. And I would tell you, I'm going to keep calling them. Well, I don't want you to call them. Well, that's your call. Okay? So that's why it's very important for you to register your client with them up front. They also will pay you. A lot of the builders call their commission to you not a commission, they call it a finder's fee. So if buyer goes in there and then comes back on the second trip and says, oh yeah, I have a realtor, they do not have to honor that. Well, you found me without your realtor, what the hell do you need a realtor for? But I mean, so it's very important that here, so knowing that, you need to know that you first off have to establish your value to your client up front. I'm going to represent you no matter what we're doing. You need to have a conversation with them and find out if they're even interested in a new home. Now, there are pros and cons to new home builds. That some people love the idea of having the brand new home that nobody's lived in, and some people like the fact that if the home's already been lived in, that you usually have a more established yard, you usually have window treatments or things expenses that you're going to have to do in a brand new home that you won't have in a resale home unless you decide to redecorate. But those are more, it's more of on your time schedule instead of you have to do it from the beginning. You understand that? So it's good to have that conversation with. Okay. Can I ask everyone to mute yourself, and then if you have something to say, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question. Okay. Thank you. Oh, somebody wait. Uh-oh. Thank you. All right. Hello, Marla. Okay, so if and get off my train of thought. It doesn't take much to get me off my train of thought. You need to make sure that if you have a client that's even thinking about the possibility of a new home, that you talk with them up front about the value you bring. Because if they go to talk to the new home sales rep, they are representing that builder. Their goal is to get them on contract with that builder at whatever they can. There are ways that you can help them. We're going to be going through those ways. Besides just the fact that, well, I'm going to represent you. How are you going to represent me? So we're going to talk about some of the hows. But it's real important that you know their mind. And if you think there's any possibility that you're showing them in an area where there's a new home builder, as if you think there's any possibility, you need to go to that new home builder first and pre-register that client. You don't have to give them their phone number. You can give them your phone number. Okay? But you need to pre-register them. So if they walk in the door, they go, oh, yeah. Okay? And in your discussion with them, be upfront with them. Hey, if you happen to walk in, I have, since you told me you were interested, you might be interested in new homes. Here's some information I've gotten from some of the new home builders around. I really didn't register you with them just in case you go in there. You see what you're doing? You're setting the expectation. Now, if you go into one that I haven't given you, be sure and put my name on there. Let's talk about it. Give them my card, tell them, yes, this is my realtor. And you don't want to tell them that they have to do that because you won't get paid if they don't do that. Do that so they know I'm representing you. Now, here are some of the things that I'm going to be able to help you with, and that's what we're going to go through. You see what I'm saying? You start establishing your value from day one. All right, that's got. These are just some extra notes I made beforehand. Now I'll get to the main topic. You're going to be able to help them with their negotiations. You're going to be able to help them. Every neighborhood is its own profit center for a building. Just like every branch office for a broker this is Champion's office is a profit center for Gary Green. They decided whether or not to keep this, what they're going to do in this office based on the money this office is bringing or not bringing, right? Or they make decisions on pricing in the new home subdivision. They make decision on pricing and everything else. So what homes are going to build. There are a lot of things that are made based on what's already happening in that area. There are a lot of rules that they have to follow. Like with Perry Homes, every development has its own set of rules. How often you could repeat a floor plan, how often you could repeat a front for a home, how often you could repeat the same brick. We had a situation come up early on in Perry Homes where my client had picked a brick and had bricked the house. And if you look at brick samples in the builder's home, that's all you got is a sample to look at, right? Well, somebody went next door 6 months later and built a home. It was a different brick, but when they got it up, it looked almost identical to the other brick. Both clients were mad. The developer was mad. We had to figure out so basically what we had to do was go and repaint the bricks on one of the homes. And I'm serious. So in order to try and solve the situation, because that was a whole lot cheaper than tearing down the brick and repainting the house. That was the other option. But we had to do something. So they have strict guidelines that they have to follow, regardless of what you're trying. Oh, I want that lot, but I want this house and I want this brick. Well, okay, that house might work, but that brick's right over there. I can't do that. Well, I'm not going to buy here. Well, you're not going to buy there. There are some things that cannot get passed. All right. Go into your registering fund. You go into the model. You're going to get. Okay, we covered that part. Good. All right, building a home. Okay. Tony and Pam were just asking me about an MLS sale versus a non-MLS sale with a building. If you go in and a home is already under construction, and basically at any phase of construction from concrete on, most builders now are listing it with the MLS. Okay, so that will most likely, I'm not going to say always, because there are exceptions to every rule, but that will most likely be an MLS sale. Okay, if you go in there and they say, well, I want to put this home on that lot, and you go through the whole process, and all there is dirt when you start, they have not listed that home on the MLS yet, and it probably will never get listed because it's going to be sold beforehand. So that will be a non-MLS sale. So you won't get hard production credit for it, but you still all the other rules, you as far as your production here and all of that, it still counts for all of that. It just won't count on the horror business side of it. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but is there any way to find out for those that are not listed anywhere, right? Like the county?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Those homes that were built later on, no, not later on, but if you're looking for comps for whatever reason in the area, those won't show up anywhere.
They won't show up on the MLS. They'll show up on HCAD or on MCAD if it's in Montgomery County.
Yeah, but they don't have.
No, they'll have a lot of information there. You'll have the original sales price on HCAD. You can find that on. You can find the original what that home. It's on there.
Yeah.
Okay, but no, you're not going to have the same information because of Texas has a Privacy Information Act that and it's not as easy to find that.
So they'd be on radio,
Right. You have to go to the county. If you're going to find the county information, you've got to go to the county that the home is in. Okay. All right.
Charles, can I say something?
Certainly.
One of the other things that I've done is I look at the floor plan and the square footage. Then I'll go into HAR and look at sales around that square foot for that particular house in that subdivision that was built around that time to kind of see if I can get comps.
And that's a good rule of thumb as well. Yes, you can get. Okay, everybody else is there. I just want to make sure that I'm not leaving anybody out. But yes, that's all, and that's not an exact, but it's as close as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Because you may have two homes that are exactly the same square foot sitting side by side on $10,000 difference in price. Okay, so you can get it from and get that's as close as you're going to get it. Thank you, Elise. Okay. When you are building a home from scratch like that, okay, and you're picking the plan, builders do not generally discount price. There are different ways that you can try to get extra value for your client. And here are some of the things that builders don't want you to know about. For one, when you have a property that has a lot premium, the builder did not pay for that lot premium. They bought 50 lots from the developer and paid a bulk price for those lots, period. It doesn't matter whether it's on the lake, it doesn't matter whether it's in the middle of the subdivision, on the corner, oversized, none of that matters as far as the cost to the builder. So that is one thing that you can do that will help you try to mitigate, and you probably won't get the whole price off, but some of those premiums, lot premiums, got some room for negotiation if you handle it correctly. You don't want to go in there in front of your client and go like, you didn't pay for that, so what? Be more discreet, okay? And if they know then you can start talking about if you yes. Okay. If they know that you know that, it might. Oh, sorry, somebody else coming in. Okay. There we go. If they understand that what you know, then it's a little bit easier for you to negotiate with them. But you want to try to do that negotiating. You don't want to get into an argument with them. Okay, so there's a lot of this stuff there a lot of the negotiating that you do with them may actually come after your client has left, and you go back and talk to them, or you get on the phone and you try to deal with it. Okay? Do not just, now most builders use their own contracts. So don't try to make an offer and send it to them because they won't accept it. And you're wasting your time, so don't do that. But with them, you want to just try to sit down and talk with the sales rep and see what you can do. All right, structural options are the same thing. They will charge you, there's some sort of structural options that they will charge you for. Some of them actually do cost more. Some of them, it's just simply because they're so popular, they don't want to do any more of them, and so they'll put a premium on them just to slow them down. So that's another area, you know what I'm talking about with a structural, if the front of the house shows it has 3 dormers on it versus this other one over here that's just got a gable roof. Okay, this 3 dormer may be very popular and they may sell a lot of those. So they'll put a premium on them if they're selling a bunch of them to try and slow it down so they can sell more of the others. Okay, so understand, and there are other things like, for example, all brick on this house is one price, but brick with rock, if you're gonna have a brick and stone front, that's this price. That's another one. How much a difference it actually costs? Not much. Okay. It certainly doesn't cost what they usually try to charge more, and I promise you that. Every okay, we're going. That's just next is the design center. Okay, this is where they get you. Okay, but if you're selling a home up front like that, and you're trying to get a deal for your client, getting a credit, a design center credit. Okay, basically, for every dollar that they give you credit, for every dollar they're giving you credit, it's costing them about 60 cents. Okay, so they give you $20,000 or $10,000 in credit. That sounds like a whole bunch, but it's not costing them as much, and they're much more pliable on that. But you need to have a conversation with your client before they ever get to the design center. Give you a classic example. My brother built a home with Coventry this summer. And he wanted all wood floors in it. The price they gave him for the all wood floors was pretty high. So before he did that, he went and checked it out for a little bit less than what they were going to charge him to do the whole house in their basically starting level with floor. He got something that was like 2 levels above that he went into. So what he did was he had them just put carpet everywhere, including the kitchen, and everywhere except for the bathrooms they put carpet. And then he went in and donated. What they did was they put the carpet in, didn't tack it down. So they didn't have tack strips to deal with when they went in to put the wood floors in. And they're going like, "Are you sure that's what you want?" "Yep, that's what I want." And he told me, he said, "I got somebody else coming. They pick the heck out of your price." So he's got a much better wood floor for less than what it costs to do that. And he donated his carpet to Habitat for Humanity. It's a win-win situation. Okay. Now, there are a lot of things that you can, there are things that if you think about any kind of remodeling you may or may not have done, and I've done and I'll never do again in your own home, there are things that are much easier for you to change out yourself than it is. Some things are a whole lot easier for a builder to do than for you to do later, and some things it makes a lot more sense for you to just do yourself, depending on the price of the home. So the conversation you want to have with your client is they're going to go and they're going to show you everything. How much money do you really want to put in that? Because normally they'll charge you for, you'll have to pay full price up front for the, any upgrades that you do. If you're gonna put in a wood floor instead of a carpet here, whatever, if that's a $5,000 difference for that floor in that room, then that's what you're gonna pay, is $5,000, you can write a check. That's not a closing, that's now. If the house doesn't go through, too bad. That's, you lose it. Okay?
So, well, some builders refuse to put the parking in case builder.
Well, I mean, well, he was able to work this out with, hey, he actually did this without me. I was impressed. So I didn't, but, of course, he's my little brother and I've taught him a few things over the years, but, so I'll take credit that way. But it's, no builder is the same. Okay, they've all got, it's basic things that they do. Some of them are different, are going to treat it a little bit differently than others. What you've got to do, regardless of what it is your client wants, is you need to make sure they understand that they're paying a premium to have the builder do it. Is that something that they want to pay that? Is it worth it for them to pay that premium? And then you also want to guard against, you want to see what else is going on in that neighborhood. You want to make sure they don't overprice that house for the neighborhood. That's another thing that happens. People go like, oh yeah, I want to put all this stuff in. Oh, sure, I got the money. It's okay. I just sold this other house over here. I'm cash flush. 3 years later, something's come up. They got a job change. They've got to move. They got something coming. All of a sudden, they're upside down on the house because the neighborhood won't support all of the upgrades that they've done. So these are conversations that you need to be having with your client before they ever get on contract with the builder, just like you would have with them. If they're looking at a resale home and they're thinking, well, okay, this looks okay, but if I'm going to come in here, you see the HGT. Well, if I come in here, I got to change all this out. I got to go do this. Okay, is that something you're going to do right away? Is that something where's the money for this coming from? You want to try to keep your client. You want to give them what they want, but you also want to make sure that you're not hurting them. You are an advisor. You're not a legal advisor, but you are a real estate advisor. And I apologize. The allergies just gone crazy. I promise everybody. Not had it, not gonna get it, but the Houston allergies I've been dealing with for a few years are still there. So, all right. So, yes.
In that situation with your brother, is it possible to say, I don't want to?
That's a good question. No. Because now if he were paying cash for the house, that might be a possibility. But on a mortgage company, well, not just the appraiser, but the mortgage company will send a final inspector out. And that house has to be livable. And if it doesn't have a floor in it, it's not livable. Okay, so but that's a very good question. So they have to finish it out some way. So if it's something that your buyer is going to want to change at some point, they've also got to weigh in the cost of whatever demo is involved in making that change. Okay, and I'm not saying don't use the builder's upgrades. I'm just saying don't let them go crazy. Help protect them a little bit from themselves. Well, to a point up front, they're not negotiable once you get to the design center. They're negotiable if you can get a credit for them up front from the sales agent. Once you get that guy under contract with a builder, you're done. You're not going to come back and negotiate with them. Okay? They'll tell you to apply pipe or something a whole bit less nice. There's another thing that you need to know, though, about once a home gets finished. And this is also important to know if you're buying an inventory home that's already finished. Some builders have, if you have a resale home and it goes beyond the contract date, and you have to extend the contract, sometimes they're asking for additional earnest money to extend the contract, right? It's a reasonable request. Well, builders will do the same thing. However, some of them have also started, basically what's charging you is a carrying fee, because they're paying interest every day that that house is on the market. So they may charge you just an extra $2,500 for the house. If it closes, this is non-refundable, this is not earnest money, this is another $2,500, and I'm just using that number for random, but whatever the number is, they're gonna charge you because that's what it's gonna cost them to carry that house another 2 weeks or so. So these are conversations, and they're not, that's not information that they want to talk to you about up front. So the key there is to make sure your client's not doing anything that's holding up the process. Okay? And your client lender is not doing anything to hold up the process, because that's 99% of the time where there's a problem with the closing. It's just like it is in resale. But builders aren't forgiving. You got a lender that's sitting on his rear end and not getting things processed, not telling your client what they need. And all of a sudden he comes up, well, I haven't got this from, I haven't got this from, and you talk to your client. They didn't ask for that. You've had this conversation, right? Believe me, if you haven't, you will. But the builders will start penalizing your client. Well, and most of them have in their contracts allowances for that. Most of them won't even step. I guess somebody has to come in. Oh, okay. Most of your builders have allowances in their contract that give them, weather conditions, whatever, material shortages. They don't box themselves into a corner. So what you want to make sure is that when they're ready, you're ready, because it doesn't matter what kind of delays they're having right now. Once they get the house finished, they want to close. Yeah. But but again, it's their contract. They protect themselves. And you really don't have a choice when you're working with a builder that has his own contract. Every one of them has something like that in there. It's not bad. It's legal. Everything, it's just, you just need to be aware that it's there. Okay. Let's see. Getting back to the design center, I got ahead of myself. I do that.
I got another one real quick.
Okay.
There's another thing to watch out for. If you're in a small community or a community that's already built and another developer comes in and he's gonna sell these last 5 lots or something that's left. Some of those guys, because they're kind of independent, I've seen where all the closings are way late because they get the money and they start working on another house.
Yeah, when
That
you're dealing
happened
with
over
the,
here in Wimbledon Champions a few years ago. And they were closing like months late because he wasn't finishing that house because he got the money for that house.
okay, basically, you're talking about a small guy doing 1s and 2s.
Yeah, he did like 5 or 6
Okay.
years.
I put him in the same category as almost every independent contractor out there. They're horrible on timing. It doesn't matter whether their work is good or bad, their timing is horrible. So, as much as possible, try to stay away from those guys, just because you're going to run into this every time.
They use your money on the next house because they're
Yeah,
small, they don't have a lot of capital.
What they don't understand is that they go ahead and get this one finished, then they get paid for it and move on, as opposed to they get all these things out there and all of a sudden they're strapped, they don't have cash, they keep trying to get more draws from here, there, and there. Try to stay away from the 1s and 2s guys. Unless you can go and find enough reviews on them to show that this guy doesn't handle his business that way. Uh-huh.
He built that in Westview. And I manage his investments, not the homes that, all involved in profits. And there's all these regulations they have at the bank that they can only draw so much to buy. doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't.
They,
It's,
got some people.
well, that's the thing. So you definitely want to, again, you're an advisor. You don't rule your client. You're not, you are only there to try and help them, but you want to do your best to steer them away from people where you think there's going to be a problem. You know, if I wouldn't go through this myself, why would I not try to steer you away from it?
So how would you check out, like, visitors who are, or, you know, small-time visitors who are doing,
You can Google anything,
you know,
first off.
houses?
And you can find you Google reviews on anybody. I can Google reviews on you. Boy, we need to talk. No. But you can, you can find out if there are no reviews out there for that new, that tells me that we don't want to be their guinea pig. Okay. So, getting back to the design center. Design center appointments are normally 2 to 3 hours apiece. They'll usually, depending on the house, they'll send either 2 or 3 appointments.
Charles, really quick on the contract. I've had a client where they had to sell their house first, and I had a contingency in the builder's contract that the sale was contingent upon the client selling their existing home. And then I had to prove to the builder that the home was listed on MLS. And then they required me to let them know how many showings there were per week to make sure that there was activity on the house. Have you ever encountered that?
Actually, most of the time, we would not take contingency except on a piece of dirt that we haven't started yet.
See, and this mhm.
And again, it's going to be different with each builder, but if the, okay, let's say you come in and I want this house over here, but I got a house to sell. Well, I can't sell you this one over here because there's no construction. I can sell you this piece of dirt. And they'll put you on a 60-day contingency. Usually it's the max that they'll do. You got 60 days to get that home sold.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, if they start that home and there's anything in particular that your client is wanting that's not what they normally would put in an inventory home, they won't build it that way. They'll build it as an inventory home, and you're welcome to continue on buying it once you sell your home, if they don't get another buyer for it first.
But you said they bought the lot. You have to buy the dirt.
Yep. Well, the builder's already bought the dirt.
But I mean, you can't buy the lot from the builder?
No.
Why you're.
No, you can say you're under contract to build this home, this lot. But I'm saying it's a contingency contract, and in their wording, in their contract, they've got that you've got this much time.
Right.
Okay, and I guarantee you, if
After that time expires, it'll be a buyer comes along.
let's just say, for example, that I want to build this house, but I want to build it without a fireplace. I don't want a fireplace in my house. What the heck do you need a fireplace for? But every other home that they're building out there has a fireplace in it. This is actually something that happened, so I can speak to it. And so the client really wanted a house without a fireplace, but they wanted to keep the contract. Guess what they got? A house with a fireplace. Now, because the only other option was, okay, you're going to, at that time, to put that fireplace in was a $2,500 plan option. Okay. It was going to cost $6,000 non-refundable earnest money to build it without the fireplace.
Oh, my goodness.
So if the contingency didn't go through, they lost $6,000. Well, who's going to do that? Are you going to let your client do it? So guess what they got? A house with a fireplace. So again, that's just one example, but if there's something that they're wanting that's different from the norm, there is something to go in that house without just a lot of extra expense and a lot of extra argument on your part to try to get them to do it.
I've also found that there's spec homes and inventory homes will have the 8-foot doors and they'll have the fireplace and this and that. But if you go in to build from dirt up, it's $1,800 extra to have 8 doors, you know.
Because, okay, all right, in the spec home, this is what happens. Like I say, when you put the house on the, you pour the concrete, you put the house on the MLS. You, in that house, the way that you've done it, you designed in the 8-foot doors. You designed in the fireplace. As those get added, you add those to the price of the house on the MLS. So you'll see the bill, if you follow any home under construction, you'll see the price go up as it moves on. Well, that's not, that's because they're adding those things to the house. Now, here's the other side of that coin. You get to the house all the way finished, and it's not under contract. Which right now is not an issue. But most, you know, if there's a house that gets finished and not under contract, there's something else going on. But if you get that house to completion and it's not under contract, now it's costing them money to, you know, to get the house out. The original price on it, you know, again, you follow them in the list, you'll see it went up, and then you start to see it come down.
Now it goes up because they said the supplies cost them more.
Right.
And
Again,
are they holding
I
up
want,
the
let's
issues or-
talk away from this year. What you're going to see. Okay, and it will get back to that. We're just, right now, we're not there. Right now, we're in a situation where you got it from sell. But if you get to a home that's completed and it's not sold, they won't give it. This is where you can talk to them, try to negotiate price, okay? Because they don't have any options to come in and, well, okay, we'll give you a design center credit, home's finished. Oh, well, we'll do this, home's finished. So you have some price options, but this is also the home that if you exceed the 30-day contract term, they're gonna start charging you. Which is why whether you're going through your own lender or the client's own lender, or you use the builder's lender, you've got to make sure that your client's not causing any delay. The biggest issue when I was doing this was when I got the client over here telling me one thing, I got the lender over here telling me another, and it turns out neither one of them were really communicating well with each other. And it happens just like it happens on resale homes. The average lender is wrong. Accept that fact. Doesn't matter whether they're with a builder, doesn't matter who they're with. And people lie. Okay? They'll tell you, well, yeah, I got that covered. Really? How did you get that covered? Never take answers at face value. Quiz. What did, well, if you got that framework, what did it say? What, you know, if you're trying to get the job verification, did you verify that they have done the job? Or come get, you know, find out what they know about the information they got. Because I guarantee you that'll bite you. And it'll bite your client, more importantly.
Is it usually in the contract an extra day?
No. Sometimes if it's a finished, no, it's usually not in the contract. But basically, once you go past that closing date, you don't have a contract. Right? That's the same as it would be in a resale home. You're out of contract. They can charge you whatever they want. It's whatever the market will bear. They do a contract at a price to close by this date. If that date is not met, and they can show that it was your client's fault that it was not met, or it was your client's lender's fault, not their fault. If it's their lender, this is another thing for you as a lender. If it's their lender, you go and say, get on phone and say, hey, charge your darn lender, he's the one holding it up. Okay, so you have a little more clap there. But if you're using an outside lender, and for any reason that house doesn't close, other than the fact that a storm came in and wouldn't let and they stopped closing and stopped issuing insurance, even on that, Young Lake. They've been announcing the storm for 2 weeks, or a week that it's been coming in. You need to get the insurance ahead of time, right? Because if you get the rider done ahead of time, so if you don't meet that closing date, and I'm not telling you they always will, but you need to be prepared for the fact and not get surprised if they do. Not let your client get surprised if they do. It's no different than a resale contract on that. Okay? You have to renegotiate a closing date with a seller because your client's lender is an idiot. You have to jump through hoops, right? Yeah, it's not fun. It won't be any more fun with them. So, okay, okay, here's some. Okay, if you're doing new construction, you know, it can take 4 to 7 months. If your new construction is a custom builder, it can take a year or more, 18 months, very easily. They need to be prepared for the fact that, you know, they're going to be on temporary or be out of place for whatever time that's going to happen. If you are building a home with a builder, you could be, just because you go in there this weekend and write a contract, don't think you're going to spread around on that home next week. Normally, it takes 30 days for them to get the permitting process and get everything approved to build that home. Because, okay, when a builder plots out a neighborhood, okay, I've got this block here. I've got these 10 homes. This is what I'm going to build on these 10 homes, on these 10 lots. And they get the developer to approve everything about those homes, the elevations, the brick, the whole bit. They go through the permitting process to the city or to the county. They get all that done, then they go in there and they just start building those homes. Okay, now if you happen to be building one of those homes and they haven't broken ground on it yet, they're going to break ground pretty fast because they've already gone through the permitting process. If they have to initiate the permitting process, all the approval process with your contract, expect 30 days minimum. Okay. Again, so your client needs to be aware of that. Okay, you're going to go through a few weeks where you're not going to see anything going on because they got to get all this done. Ask the builder what their approximate start time is when you do the contract, so that so y'all are staying on the same page. Make that sales rep, make them your friend. Okay, do not try to be adversarial to them, because all they'll do is they'll contact your client when they want something, and they'll shoot you an email or something they won't talk to you. Just like if you're getting confrontational with another agent, it works so much better if we could just, okay, we're here to do a job. Let's just do our job and not try to make it personal. But if you are calling them on a regular basis, hey, I'm just checking in to see how this is going. Have a list of your questions that you want to know. Have you gotten this from the lender? This is going. Have you got this? What do you do? What do you need from my clients? Always, every time you talk to them, is there anything that you're needing from my clients? What do you need from my clients? If you're helping them get that information, you are their friend. But you know what else you are? You're working for your client. Okay? They will, because if you've got a good sales rep, now here's the other thing. They're trained to sell their homes. Do not, if you want to really aggravate a salesperson, go in there and try to demonstrate their home for them. Okay? It doesn't matter what the builder is. Go in there and try to, do you know all the features of their home? They've been trained in there. They sit in their home every day. They look at they watch the construction of their homes. They know what's going on here. They know what their selling features are versus their competitor over here. As long as you feel like what you're hearing from them is not, as long as you feel like they're being truthful with your client. Okay, and your client is interested in what they're doing, let them do it. Because here's the thing. I could go on with stories, but I won't do it. I'm gonna share this one with you because this is, okay. I had these people come in with a realtor, good realtor, that, you know, everything was going fine. They were actually, we were sitting at the table in my office, and the lady was literally just kind of doing this. They wanted to buy that home, but they were scared. Okay, and I knew that, so I was trying to talk through that with them and trying to get to what it was that was still bothering them. I knew that I had a sale there. The last thing I'm going to do is pressure anybody, but I knew these people wanted that house bad. They were in an apartment. They had 2 kids, 2 very small kids. They didn't need to be in that apartment. They needed that 4-bedroom house. Okay. The realtor stands up and goes like, "Now, we've given you a lot to think about. You need to go home and sleep on it." 6 months later, they were still asleep. Okay. If you do something like that, you have not done anyone a favor. You don't want to let your client get pressured, but if you feel like this is the right for your client, and more importantly, you feel it's what they want, you owe them the courtesy of seeing it through and making sure that if that's what they want, because guess what? If they just don't sleep in 6 months, guess who else doesn't get paid? Yeah. And last time I checked, we weren't doing this for our health. Okay? Right? So, again, let them demonstrate their home. You don't want to let them pressure your client, but let them follow through. Because it might save you at least 2 more weeks of driving them around and being a taxi driver. Okay? And that deal may not, you know, for all the times I know we've all heard it. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. Honestly, you know, if it was meant to be, it's up to me. You know, if nothing happens until we make a decision. It's like the guy who's sitting on the roof, you know, during a flood, and he sees the water coming up to the door, and he's going like, "God, please send help." Water gets up higher, you know. I mean, the boat comes by, and the guy says, "Hey, we're here to take you off there." That's okay. God will provide. You've heard this. Water gets up higher, you know, and they keep. Another boat comes by, and he says, "I'll get you off this roof." He says, "It's okay. God will provide." Water gets up to the roof, a helicopter comes by, and you can try to take it off. God will provide. Well, he drowns. He gets to heaven, and he says, "Hey, I thought you said you would provide." And he said, "I gave you 2 boats and a helicopter. What else do you want?" You've got to take the step and do something. So again, that's it. I know you've heard the story, but it's just the people like that. Some people just drive me nuts. All right. Let's see what we haven't covered. Where are we on time? What time is it? 8. Okay. Change orders. Okay. If they have to go in, if you've gone to the design center and you've made your choices, you're making changes to the house. Okay. And that's all fine and good, but after you leave that design center, they charge, if they go back and want to make an additional change order, doesn't matter what it is. If you're allowed to make it, if they're not past the point where they can even do it, they will charge you a penalty for making that change. Okay, so you want to make sure that's where you're talking things through with your client about what they really want. Now, a lot of times, they're not allowed to go. Some the design centers for these builders are fairly strict. They don't just want the public going in, but you can get permission to take your client in to preview the design center. Okay, just go through that sales rep, and if you can go in there and ahead of time without an appointment, where you're not really bothering the people there that are with appointments or other people, and just kind of go in and see some of their choices, that'll help. Okay, but you've really got to help them stay focused when they get to the design center, because it's gonna be very intense. I've seen, I don't know how many people walk out of design centers with tears. Okay, because there was so many, it was so overwhelming to them. Okay, it almost caused my divorce 4 years earlier, but I should have known then. But at any rate, but yes, actually, in all seriousness, my first wife, when we built a home with Prairie Homes, and I knew that going backwards and forwards, I knew exactly what I wanted in there, and I had shown her everything. Oh, okay, this is all fine, good, blah, 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 blah. So we get in there, and I'm focused on getting through all this stuff, and her head's spinning. We walked out of there, and she just absolutely fell apart, and I couldn't understand why. Okay, I would heard an apology on that one. But at any rate, it's very overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to people who are in the business, to people who are, especially, oh my gosh, you got a first-time home buyer, they're going through the design process. You talk about our deer in the headlights. Okay, so they need your help. Questions? Most reputable builders have inspections. That's the next thing. All builders have their own inspection process. Do you want to just leave it to them? You still want to do your due diligence and recommend that that your client get an outside inspector. They want a pre-cover-up inspection, okay, and they want a final inspection. The pre-cover-up inspection is pre-sheetrock. Now, let me tell you how the builder's not going to wait for you, not for nothing. If they tell you, we'll be finished with this on this afternoon, we'll be finished putting in all the electrical stuff, and we're going to sheetrock it on, so let's say, whatever day, say it's Thursday, they're going to finish it this afternoon, and they're going to be sheetrocking tomorrow. You got to have an inspector out there tonight. Now, you'll get this plan from them. If they tell you they're finished with all their wiring and all that kind of stuff today, and they're going to start sheetrocking tomorrow. Tomorrow's too late to get an inspector out there.
So the inspectors negotiate with them back.
They will. Most inspectors, and again, this is a question I asked the inspector before you send them out. But most of the time, they'll charge for a follow-up call, and it's not as much as the original inspection. Right, and a lot of builders are much better now than they were 10 years ago about trying to get the home ready for that final walkthrough.
What if you're buying a home that's, the sheetrock is already off, but it's still kind of, they haven't finalized it, not ready to move in yet?
All you can do is do the final inspection.
Is it a good idea?
But you want to have that inspection done before you do the walkthrough. Normally, you want to try and have this is one way I was told. Okay, we're going to schedule our walkthrough on October 28th. Okay, that's when we're going to do our walkthrough. So you want to schedule your inspector out about the 24th. So, because you want to get them 3 days to look at the inspection report and have a chance to address them before they're doing a walkthrough with you. What we always told I said the same thing to every single client I ever sold a home to as a Prairie Home rep, is we will address everything on that inspection report. We may or may not change it to what they say. We'll either change it or we'll tell you why what we did was right and be able to show you why. Okay, because there's a code of where things need to be on the end, but there are different ways of getting to that end. Okay, and so and they will be able to show you why it's up to code.
Okay, so now since you have a 1-year warranty, the first year you have a warranty that covers it.
Right.
Is it a good idea
Well, no. I would still have another inspector come in before the end of that year.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, it's again, it's another couple $100 at that point to come in, especially if you deal with the guy that you originally had to do the inspection. You know, hey, what if we do this, what would you charge me to come back in 11 months and do it again? You know, do another one. Yeah. Yeah, if they're for a repeat customer, it's worth it because they'll come back in because there's a lot of things that'll happen during that first year that that you may that they might catch and you wouldn't. Okay, so yeah, to me it's worth having. I would still have the inspection, but again, it's your client's choice. You want to present them the options. Okay.
I love so many houses. I sold her $707,000 house. And so we have the inspection. Stupid little things on it.
Yeah.
It's because their builder, when the people built that house, they never had inspection by an outside
Right.
inspector. So I was telling my client, well, I don't want to pay now or pay later.
Yeah.
Because then those people have to fix everything.
Yeah, with a $700,000 house, why wouldn't you have an inspection?
Because
Yeah.
the property.
Well, that's again. You cannot make them do anything. You can strongly urge, you can recommend, you can tell them why it's a good idea, but it is their decision. You know, the rule of thumb is you control the process, they control the decision. Your process is to educate and make sure they are aware of what they can do. Right? Okay. Questions?
I don't know where I heard that. Told me that they said in the construction foundation.
Well, okay.
Right at the beginning.
All right. You want to find out what the builder's foundation warranty is. Most reputable builders nowadays have a 10-year warranty on the structure of the home, which includes the foundation. And that 10-year warranty is normally done by an outside insurance company that comes in and does just that. They do that inspection. Now, while we're talking about that, there are very few perfect days to pour a slab. There are a lot of days that slabs get poured. Well, if the day is too cold, which you don't have to worry about, you very seldom ever have to worry about that here. It won't, and the slab starts freezing before it dries. Then never mind. If the day is too hot, what happens is the outside of the slab dries first because of the heat, and so the inside, and as it dries, it expands. So what will happen is, and I'm talking about a slab that's absolutely perfect in function, but looks horrible because you'll look at it and you'll see a bunch of spider web type cracks through it. Nothing wrong with that slab. Absolutely nothing wrong with that slab. It's just it was hot when they poured it, and this is what happened. The perfect day to pour a foundation is 75 degrees cloudy day. I'm serious. And Houston, how many days a year? So you got 3 days a year that you can pour a slab. Yeah. 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 You don't get that. Yeah. So again, now if you've got a something where there's a separation, a huge gap in the concrete, that needs to be checked out. But if you walk into a retail home and you walk into the garage and you see spider web cracks throughout the garage, that's nothing. I guarantee you 99.5% of the homes in Houston have something like that. And I got into so many arguments with people over their slabs You know, I had one guy said, "You want your money back? Take it back. I'll resell the thing." And he didn't want his money back. But I said, "What do you want?" But he just wasn't happy. I can't make you happy. There's nothing wrong with it. It's guaranteed. You got a 10-year warranty on it. The company that did that would make us rip it apart if they thought there was a problem. Because they wouldn't warranty it and we wouldn't be able to sell it. Okay? So again, just because things don't necessarily look the way that you think that the picture perfect look, doesn't mean that they're wrong. So there's a lot of intricate things about, just about homes in Houston. I had an appraiser tell me once there's two types of homes in Houston, those that have foundation problems and those that don't. And there's another deal too, so they started back in the 1980s doing the, what they used to call floating slabs, but because of the flooding around here, that got a bad reputation. But basically the cable stress slabs, that's all you have in Houston now because they tend to move collectively, right? That's a whole other class. But like I said, there's just a lot of things. Somebody else wants to be admitted. Oh. Okay. So we're just about to wrap it up here. Any questions on what we've done so far? Yes. Okay. That's usually, usually if they put anything in the backyard, they'll put like plugs in, which are worthless. But that is also something that is easier to negotiate. Or, those things like that. Items rather than price are much more easy to negotiate. Okay. And that's the other thing too, is selling the backyard on the inventory home, they'll go ahead and put it in a lot of times because it's easier to sell the home with a sign in it. So again, it just depends on what your clients want. The sales rep, okay, that depends on the sales rep. There's a problem. Okay, first off, most builders, and I never use all of them, never use them, okay, because most builders, there is a big separation between construction and sales. Most management in construction companies comes up through, and the home builders comes up through construction. Okay, so you have construction managers overseeing salespeople. That sometimes does this. A lot of times does this. I can tell you from personal experience. A lot of times it does. There were times that I get in my boss's face, basically daring to fire me because I knew I was right and he was wrong. I suggest you not do that too long. At any rate, but getting involved in the process and trying to make sure that, for example, if that house was supposed to have a fireplace in it, that's the right fireplace, or that the brick that's been delivered is the right brick. Yeah, I'd spend. We opened at 10. I'd spend between 8:30 and 10 driving through construction, depending on what all we had going on, looking at the homes in the various stages to make sure that the things that I knew were supposed to be there were there, just as a separate set of eyes. But again, that depends on the sales rep. Not everybody will do that. Some of them will get there 5 minutes after 10 and open up for 10 o'clock. But so again, there's no one set of rules for that. It just depends on how reputable your sales guy is. You don't know that until you start dealing with it. Questions?
Charles,
Uh-huh.
what we tend to do is once we've gotten the contract signed, gone through to the design center, and you start the construction, we like to meet the builder himself. That way we have a relationship with him while they're going through the building process to help with the inspections. And we found that it's helpful when you go through the walkthroughs to have that kind of personal relationship with the builder. When I say the builder, that means that for people that aren't familiar,
the construction manager.
The person who's
Yeah,
constructing.
actually, a lot of them will now set up a pre-construction meeting with your client. And if they do, they make sure you're there. You don't want to interfere, but you want to be a positive reinforcement to your client of what's going on. And yes, you have that opportunity to meet them and start that rapport. The more rapport more you got with the more people in the new home building company, the better chance you've got of that being a smooth transaction. So yes, but that's very good, Tony. Thank you for that. Before I forget, everybody that's on here now, I don't, before you log off, email me that you're here and I'll send you the handout that we just went over. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Thank you, guys. All right. All right.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it.
Okay.
So,